By the time anyone in the family noticed the narrator's company, it had already existed for years, quietly profitable, dull on the surface, built to survive bad quarters without applause. That invisibility had been the point. In the family, attention was a scarce resource, and it had long been allocated elsewhere. His brother had always received it first. Golden wasn't a metaphor so much as a job title, the one with the voice that filled rooms, the one whose ideas sounded inevitable when he said them. At dinners, the parents would lean in when he spoke, nodding through half-formed plans, laughing at risk like it was courage. When the narrator mentioned his own work, process, heavy, unglamorous, slow, the table would smile indulgently. Cute, his mother used to say. A little side thing. The laughter wasn't cruel. That was almost worse. It made the dismissal feel permanent, structural. You didn't argue with it. You adapted. So he built in silence. He learned to keep conversations factual and short. He didn't bring spreadsheets to holidays. He didn't correct assumptions. Distance, he discovered, wasn't a punishment, it was insulation. The family company, meanwhile, grew loud. Offices' titles, expansion announcements. The brother became its face. Mistakes happened early, nothing fatal, the parents said. Everyone learns. Cash flowed. Credit followed. The narrator watched from the edge, not with envy, but with a precise kind of curiosity. He knew how fragile confidence could be when it wasn't tethered to controls. The unraveling arrived not as a collapse but as a drip. Missed payments. Vendors grumbling. A line of credit quietly renegotiated. The parents explained it away as market conditions. The brother kept smiling, kept promising. Then the phone calls changed tone. First came curiosity. How was the narrator's business really doing? Then admiration, sudden and bright. Then the meeting request. They chose a neutral restaurant, midweek, as if neutrality could smooth the arithmetic. The parents arrived together. The brother arrived late, breathless, still charming. They didn't mention the old jokes. They didn't need to. Everyone remembered. "We've been talking," his father said, folding his hands. About family. The proposal was framed carefully. The narrator had done well. The brother had hit a rough patch. It would be fair, they said, to share ownership, capital, access. Half wasn't called half, it was called off support. A temporary realignment. The narrator listened, nodding once, as if following instructions. He noticed the way the parents avoided specifics, the way the brother watched his reaction like a gauge. Inside, something familiar stirred, not anger, not fear, but the old reflex to prove usefulness. He let it pass. "I don't bring partners into my company without due diligence," he said. "That's policy." The brother laughed light and easy. "It's me." The narrator smiled back. He'd practiced that smile in boardrooms. Exactly. They pushed. Family loyalty, shared history. The parents spoke of sacrifice, of what they'd given both sons, of how unfair it would look for one to thrive while the other struggled. "You don't get to be separate from us," his mother said, and for a moment the old hierarchy flickered back into place. He didn't argue. He asked for time. What he did next wasn't dramatic. He commissioned an external review of the family company, not to accuse, but to understand. He'd learned long ago that facts were more persuasive than feelings, and that authority spoke most clearly when it didn't sound like him. The findings arrived in language that was almost polite. Funds relocated without approval. Personal expenses categorized as operational. Decisions made without oversight, nothing theatrical. Nothing deniable. He sent the report to his parents and requested another meeting. This time, there was no restaurant. A conference room. Glass walls. A mediator present, introduced by name and credentials. The brother sat back, arms crossed, confidence thinning but intact. The mediator summarized the findings. The words landed slowly, like weights placed with care. The parents frowned, confused at first, then defensive. Explanations surfaced, misunderstandings, pressures, intentions. The narrator said very little. When he did speak, it was to clarify process. Timelines. Definitions. At one point, his mother turned to him, eyes sharp. "Are you saying your brother is a criminal?" He considered the word, then nodded once. "I'm saying I don't hire thieves." The room went quiet, not shocked, Exactly, but recalibrated. The mediator didn't react. The word had been used precisely, not as an insult, but as a category. The brother stood up, anger flashing through the charm. He accused the narrator of betrayal, of arrogance, of forgetting where he came from. The parents echoed the hurt, the disbelief. Years of favoritism suddenly rebranded as love. The narrator listened. He felt the familiar tug of guilt, the wish to soften the blow. He also felt something steadier underneath it. "I'm not taking anything from you," he said. "I'm refusing to give what you're not entitled to." The meeting ended without resolution. That was fine. Resolution wasn't required for action. Within weeks, the separation became formal. No shares transferred, no loans issued. Legal boundaries drawn cleanly, unemotionally. The family company continued to struggle. The narrators did not. The aftermath was quieter than he'd expected. There were no dramatic confrontations, just a cooling off that felt permanent. Calls went unanswered. Invitations stopped coming. He noticed the loss, but it didn't hollow him out the way it once would have. He'd already mourned a version of belonging years ago, when laughter had taught him where he stood. What replaced it wasn't triumph. It was stability. Meetings that stayed on agenda. Decisions made without apology. A life that didn't require him to shrink to maintain peace. Sometimes, alone in his office after hours, he thought about how easily things could have gone differently, how close he'd come to confusing blood with obligation. The thought didn't scare him anymore. Boundaries, he'd learned, weren't walls. They were load-bearing structures, and once built, they didn't need defending. They just stood.